Hi guys, let's talk about the teams for the deciding tests. Every series coming down to the final game. Let's look at England here. The first change you can see is Chessum is in, the youngster. A lot of pressure on his shoulders. In for a toe J, huge shoes to fill. That's going to be tough. Then Hill, then Laws, and then the other change for injury. Underhill is now out with a head knock. That's a big blow for England. Ludlam's in at 7 and he's been playing well, but, I'd expect Willis to be in as the other specialist 7, to be honest. Is it just that Eddie Jones prefers Ludlam? Let me know what you think. Then Billy V, as we see there. Kerr is in, though, for JVP. That's a bit of a weird one. Van Porecki, his kicking was really good in the last test. Their kick chase was their strongest weapon in a way. Kerr is a decent kicker, but maybe Van Porecki slightly better. So I'm not quite sure why they've changed that around. Are they going to play differently? I don't know. Now, my headline in the week was Back to the Future. I thought it was quite a clever little headline saying that England maybe might go back to basics. I don't think so based on this, but we will see. And actually the BBC used the same headline, the day later for the same sort of point. Or maybe they watched my video. Who knows? But we've got Smith and Farrell again, 10-12. Is it going to work this time? It's the same backline. Freeman on one wing, who was, pretty anonymous in the last game. Noel, who chased well, but isn't that quick. Backline. Sure, we had a bit of individual stuff from Arundel, but they haven't created. So it is an issue for England. It's a big question. Will they be able to answer it in this test? Then on the bench, pretty steady with the front rows. Ezekwe comes in to cover second row and 6. Then there's Willis, like we mentioned. And then the two apprentices on the bench as well, Joseph and Arundel. I mean, what a ridiculous thing this apprentice player is. They're just players. They've played plenty. No idea why they've been named as apprentices. But anyway, let's leave that one. Australia, Slipper slips back in. Frost, he comes in as well. So a few changes to the pack. And Wilson returns at 6. A big point to prove. I'm not sure it strengthens their team, actually. So maybe they take a few hits as well as England. In the back line, we see the centre pairing that was so impressive last time of Karevi and Paisami. And a change at 15, which again I think weakens them slightly. Hodges in, not ideal. Banks, Pataya, Kellaway, all out. So yeah, that's a bit of an issue. And maybe, does he cover 10 as well? Let me know if I've read that right, because there's not a specialist 10 on the bench. On the bench, we see a few other names there. Alatoa comes in. McDermott, the very nippy 9, comes in for Gordon. Maybe a bit more impact, a bit more speed in the game with McDermott coming on. The impressive Iki Tau as well. So they've got their 3 best centres there, I think. And Vunivalu on the bench as well, making his debut. Now, one of the strengths of the Irish team is they pretty much know their best team. And once again, very settled here. Just a couple of changes because we've got Ringrose who's out injured, but that's covered very well because Aki and Henshaw can slot in those 3 really good centres. They can just rotate. That's not a problem. And then Earls gets his rest last week and he comes back into the squad on the bench. Apart from that, we've got Sexton now turning 37, which is impressive for a starting 10 at the top level. But it's a very, very settled team. They will know exactly what they want to do. And it's New Zealand who have had to react, and make all the changes, really. Looking at the front row there, Laulala comes in, which many people wanted as their tight head. Taylor may be a bit lucky to keep his place, but, a few guys may be a little lucky. The good thing is, though, the return of Whitelock means that Scott Barrett can move back to 6. That's unsurprising because he was so good in the first game. Kane stays at 7. He wasn't going anywhere. If Foster went at some point, that's probably when you'd see Sam Kane maybe move. Bona Barrett stays at 10. There were calls for him to go. Jordan comes in at 11, even though his best position is probably fullback, but that's kind of the way I thought he might slot in. Harvili comes in at 12. He's an all-rounder, a really good distributor. Can he make the difference in this game? Then on the bench, we see the other Ioane. Akira's in there. Thought we might have seen a bit more of him, but he's got a chance to make an impact. Fakatava, that impact off the bench. And talking of impact, we do get to see Tuasava Shek. A big impact sub, and I imagine if he comes on in the centres, then Rico probably plays on the wing. Tell me if you think differently. Fainganuku is axed completely. He did have a bit of a shocker last time out. Now, one of the big positives for Wales is they've had a very consistent selection throughout the 3 games. South Africa have obviously chopped and changed with that second game. And some of those who are kind of walking wounded have made it into the team. They're okay. Lewis is there. Bigger Adams, they're all okay to go. So that's great news. So it's a very, very settled team. Lydiate there, impressive chop tackling. And Rafael, probably the find of the tour for Wales, although we knew he was good from watching him play for Leicester. But still, stepping it up to the top level, he's going to be absolutely key. George North becomes the most capped Welsh back ever, which is impressive, especially considering he's transitioned to 13 and we didn't know if that would work, but it has, so fair play to him, great achievement. Wainwright on the bench had a really good debut, he's going to need another one, and hopefully Alan Wynne-Jones, when he comes on, can actually stay on the pitch for a little bit longer than he did last time. Now for this final test, there's not much experimentation in this South African side, apart from one place, which we'll come to. The front rows, exactly how they want them. Unyukane, Mbonambi with 50 tests, Malherbe starting, then Marks Kitshoff coming on. Fantastic 1-2, we know all about that. Their three best second rows are there as well. Then we've got our open side, Khaleesi, and the blind side of Peter Steph du Toit returns after that one game last week. I thought he might come back maybe on the bench, but he's straight into that starting team. That's how much they think of him. Visa there as well. Now the pack's as good as it's going to be, probably personnel-wise, but they haven't really performed at the top level yet. That's what they're going to want to do. Then the big change-up, the big tactical change-up possibly. Hendricks there is in at 9 instead of de Klerk. He has been probably playing better than de Klerk, and also his kicking is really, really good. So expect some big box kicks and some big chases. Yeah, we'd expect that anyway for South Africa, but with him especially. Then Pollard was okay last game. I thought his running game was pretty decent. His kicking's a bit off. Maybe he's not quite the same player he was after his knee injuries, but anyway, he still is their best 10 for sure. In the centres, of course, Delande and Am and their back three, well, their wingers, Mapimpi and Colby, are nailed on. But 15, it looks like the changing of the guard has happened, and LaRue now is the utility sub, and Willemse is there at 15. And finally, we've got Scotland here, a bit of shuffling from Townsend for their decider. Ollie Smith gets his first cap at 15. I think there's an injury to Hutchinson, who was actually a bit of a makeshift 15 anyway, so big chance for him to show what he can do. Another injury, Graham can't play on the wing, which is a massive shame because he's been fantastic. So McLean comes in there, so they're probably a little bit weaker there. Ashman comes in at 2, so that's a big call to give him some big game experience. Pelusu comes into 12 alongside the very impressive Bennett. I think Bennett, has really put pressure on Harris in that 13 shirt. He's been very impressive. Then Darge and Watson, that 1-2, the quick back rows there along with Fagerson. Price is back in, so some more experience back into the team. Kinghorn stays at 10, sticking with that. Then on the bench we see Young covering second row and Johnson swapping places with Tuipulotu. So let me know what you think of all these teams. Which selections do you agree with? Which would you change and who's going to win these matches? And I'll catch you next time.